Coming up on the latest episode of Let's Talk Blood Cancer, the Patients podcast, we talk to a man who was given just 2 to 4 weeks to live, and he tells us what it was like to organise his own end-of-life gathering. And I also asked him what he would say to a stranger in Chile who saved his life. Welcome to the latest episode of Let's Talk Blood Cancer, the Patients podcast, hosted by me, Adam Joyce, acute leukemia patron and former blood cancer patient myself. And joining me on the sofa today is a man who has truly ridden the roller coaster of blood cancer. Mark Chandler, welcome to the sofa. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Mark, take us back to your life before October 2024.
Yeah, just a normal life, really. Busy, we've got family, 3 children, run a business, and shortly before the diagnosis, we were on holiday as a family in Spain, having a great time, you know, throwing the kids around the pool, doing everything you do on holiday, playing a bit of golf. It was the summer, obviously, and I work in construction, and you know, in our industry locally, there's a lot of golf, construction-related golf that goes on around in the summer. So, yeah, playing golf, running a business, being busy doing that, and then obviously busy at home just with a family as well, but just a normal life.
So active all the time?
I've been more active, you know, in previous years, but yeah, generally active, not unwell, never really been an unwell person.
And you were playing or coaching rugby at the time as well, was that right?
Coaching the kids, coaching my son's under 13 side, yeah.
And being a dad and generally just doing everything that a bloke would do. So then what did you first notice that wasn't quite right or maybe started to cause you or those around you any concern? Yeah,
I finished playing my 3rd round of golf, and it was I think it was a Friday afternoon, and I was in the clubhouse and I just had a pain across my shoulders, right from sort of left to right across my shoulders, just under my shoulder blades, and it just felt like a tugging, aching pain. And I thought nothing of it. I thought, well, I've played 3 rounds of golf. That's unusual for me, and it's probably just some pulled muscles. Went to a football match on the Saturday with my business partner, and the Sunday coached the kids at rugby. And then by the time I got home at lunchtime, I was just shivering and shaking. And I got through until Wednesday morning, and I decided to call the doctors. But between sort of Sunday and Wednesday, it was just, not great. Went to work, went to see clients, but was just not in a good place.
And what were you saying to people at the time? Like, were you making excuses for yourself or you know, putting it down to a cold or some man flu, or what was it?
I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of time, but on the Monday I had, I think I had 2 video calls, and which I did okay, but then between video calls, we had a sofa in our office, and I was just lying on the sofa under a blanket, shivering. Wow. And then on the Tuesday, I went to a client's office in the morning. I normally spent all day there, but by lunchtime I had to go home. And I was really, when I was walking to the car, I was struggling to talk to a friend of mine on the phone. When I got in the car and obviously was resting, it became easier. But the next morning I phoned the doctors and said, I think I need to come and see you.
And tell us what happened then.
They said you need to go straight to hospital. What you're describing sounds like a blood clot on the lung, and you need to get yourself to A&E. So I went up to A&E, and about 5-6 hours later they said, you know, you're not going home. I was, you know, why? What have you found? And they said, well, you could have a blood clot on the lung. It looks like you've got a respiratory infection illness akin to pneumonia, but we don't think it's pneumonia. You've got suspected lung cancer, and
they said that to you?
Yeah.
Which one of those? And
then you got your blood counts all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought, oh, okay. So I rang Stina, because I hadn't rang my wife to tell her I was even at hospital, but I thought I'd better ring her. And they said, you got a scan in the morning, CT scan, and that will confirm or deny some of those bits, and we'll go from there. And that's what happened. I had the scan. They told me I didn't have a blood clot, didn't have lung cancer. I had a respiratory illness. They also said to me, you've been tested positive this morning for COVID. Put a mask on, and your your cell counts, your blood cell counts are all over the place, and you're being transferred later today to a specialist unit.
Respiratory unit?
No, they just said a specialist unit.
Okay.
And at that point, I still hadn't really sort of twigged. And that night, about 11 o'clock, I went to what I now know as the Braeborn ward, which is the haematology ward at the Kent and Canterbury Hospital.
So when you look back now, Mark, looking back prior to October 24, when we are in this timeline, did this all come out of the blue, or now with the benefit of hindsight, were symptoms creeping up on you over a prolonged period?
No, out of the blue. A few friends have said to me, I bet if you look back at photographs when you're on holiday, for example, a month beforehand, that you look different or you'd lost weight. But no, nothing out of the blue. I mean, I understand now a bit more about symptoms of leukemia and what might show. None of that was present in me. Nothing at all. I was literally healthy 1 minute in my mind's eye, and then unhealthy. And it was as sort of shocking as that. It was totally out of the blue.
So tell me about how you actually found out that you'd got blood cancer.
Yeah, so I got transferred to the Braeborn unit, and as I said, it was late. It was about 11 o'clock, half 11, midnight when I got there. Did all the procedural stuff when you are admitted to hospital. Went to sleep, woke up, and I woke up next to a drip stand that had cancer services written all over it. And I thought, I don't really understand that. Yeah. So I called a nurse and said, it says cancer services on there. I haven't got cancer. What? And she said, and she was obviously, trying to make excuses.
Yeah.
She said, we've had to borrow that. I'll get that moved. That's not right. And of course, they obviously had a very strong inkling that I did have blood cancer. Due to the cell counts, and a few days later, or a day later, I had my bone marrow biopsy, and then I think on the 2nd of October, I was diagnosed with AML, and a registrar and a junior doctor were in the room that delivered that news. Stina was there, and the registrar, a lovely guy, he just delivered it and then explained the difference between, chronic and acute myeloid leukemia. I can't remember too much about the specifics of that conversation.
I was going to ask you, what do you remember about the conversation?
What I mainly remember, so I'm laying in bed and Stina's to my left and the consultant, the doctor's at the foot of the bed, and I just remember hearing Stina sort of crying, and I thought, I can't look at her, because if I look at her, I'm going to break down. I think I took the news okay. I didn't break down in tears to start with. I just was quite stoic, and I just looked at the wall in front of me and just stared it out for a little while. Obviously, I did look at Stina, because she's my wife, and she wasn't at the time, but she was my support, and she was upset, so I wanted to kind of be there for her. And actually, my first thoughts were about Stina and our children rather than myself, because I just thought, I'll be all right. I'll be okay. I'll get through everything. I'll be all right. Naively, blindly. It certainly wasn't arrogance, but it was a bit of a blind naivety, I guess. But I just wanted to make sure Stina was okay. But other than that, I can't really remember too much about the specifics of the conversation. The next day, the lead consultant came in and then delivered the line that was AML was a terrible, terrible disease. And, at that point, I didn't...
Is that what you were told? I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but as you've just said it, is that what was said to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So he said, AML's a terrible, terrible disease. Now, I don't have a problem with him saying that, because I've never been one to sugarcoat anything. You have to say it as it is sometimes. And I appreciate that these guys have got a job to do. And there has been no point in him trying to sweeten the blow for me by saying, it's okay. You're going to be all right. It's this, just tell me how it is so I know what I've got to face. Because if I know what I've got to face, I can engage my mind and then be ready to face that. So I don't have a problem with that consultant delivering that news that way, because he's not wrong. It is a terrible, terrible disease. And knowing what I know now around survival rates for AML, he's right. He's really right. So, he said it like that.
Did you take the news, looking back now, did you take the news in a way that you would have thought you took the news?
God, good question. I don't know. I don't know. You never expect to hear that sort of news because all this sort of stuff happens to other people, right?
Yeah, of course it does.
And then it happens to you. So I don't know if I responded the way I would have wanted to respond or seen myself responding in some kind of dream. But I was shocked because, as I said, up until that point, I'd been a relatively healthy person. You know, I'm not a person that gets coughs and colds and illnesses particularly. And then suddenly here I am, you know, with something really serious.
And you mentioned your now wife and your children. And how did your family and those close to you process the news?
It's difficult to process that kind of news because it's so significant. What obviously happened further down the line was even harder to process. But at that point, you know, our 3 children at the time, Luna was 3, Jacob was 12, and Oscar was 17. So they got 3 kids with completely different range of emotions and level of understanding.
And priorities.
And also, you know, 1 minute Stina's in the room where I'm getting diagnosed. Next thing she's going home and they're saying, "What's for dinner?" Luna needs to have a bath and put to bed. Jacob wants his football and rugby kit washed for the next day. And, you know, there is no real time for Stina to process that. I was in hospital on my own, so I could process things a little bit more because I had the, I nearly said luxury of being on my own, but I didn't have any distractions around me other than what was going on in my own head. But I don't know if we processed it fully as a group, as an individual, as friends and family. I did process it in the end. I got to grips with it because if I didn't get to grips with it, I wouldn't be able to kind of fight it if I kept fighting myself about it. Yeah, if that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense because I hear you. I remember those times myself. But your diagnosis was very different to mine. So acute myeloid leukemia, how long did it take you and how did you get a full understanding of what was happening to you?
I don't know I ever got a full understanding of what was happening to me. And the reason being, I chose not to Dr. Google anything. And I also chose not to read the majority of the information that was given to us. We were given a lot of information, which is quite right, because you need to get your head around stuff. I chose not to read it. Stina has got a sort of, you know, thirst for information and knowledge, and she wanted to know what was happening. I took the decision that I was going to live it. And I didn't therefore want to read about something that might happen, some side effects that might happen further down the line. I just deal with them as and when they came.
So you got moved.
Yeah.
And your chemotherapy started.
Yeah.
Tell us about the chemotherapy and the cycles that you had.
Yeah, so when I first started chemo, my blast cell percentage of cancerous cells was about 39%. Had the first round, sent the biopsy results off to London. They hadn't even got the results back from London, but the local consultants and analysts had reviewed the slides and said, "Mark, you know, this hasn't even touched the sides. You're still about 39-40% blast cells." Really? So they said, "We're going to, you know, skip a few processes and we're now going to give you something called FLAG-IDA, which is, I believe, the strongest sort of dose of chemotherapy they can administer in a UK hospital." I believe that's true.
I can't help you on that, I'm afraid.
And they said, excuse me, they said you have to get to a blast cell percentage of 5% or less to qualify for a stem cell transplant. But this is the strong stuff. This is really strong. And you're young, you're fit and you're strong medically. And therefore, you know, we think you'll do it. Had that treatment and then had the biopsy. On the 12th of December 24, the local consultants came in and said, "Look, we've analysed your slides locally and we think that you're in the clear. We think you've achieved a situation where you can have a stem cell transplant, i.e. your blast cells are under 5%.
So in the clear doesn't mean how most of us would interpret.
No, it doesn't mean remission. No, it means that I've qualified for a stem cell transplant,
right? Which
is the only route that will cure me, that will lead me to a remission and then a potential cure.
Okay.
I had to have a stem cell transplant because I'd failed the first round of chemotherapy. Next day, they came in and said, we just had the results from London. You didn't achieve the stem cell transplant. Your blast cells are 7%, not 5%.
It has to be 5.
It has to be 5%.
No exceptions?
I think there are exceptions when they would bend the rules, but I think in my situation, there was something to do with the genetic mutation and it wasn't a risk they were prepared to take. So that's where the rubber met the road. And they said, we're out of options. And we were like, well, what do you mean you're out of options? And they said, that's it. If you failed a second round of chemo, you don't qualify for a stem cell transplant. There's nothing more we can do for you.
This is only 2.5 months after diagnosis?
Yeah.
And they're telling you they're out of options?
Yeah, I've had 2 rounds of chemo, the second round being that really strong round, and that's it, out of options. Yeah.
So no stem cell transplant was being offered?
No.
The most aggressive chemotherapy that could be given to you, we think, was given to you and it didn't work?
Didn't work.
So, well, you tell us. What happened?
So they gave me 3 options. One was to go again with another round of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
But they strongly advised that to consider that carefully because the first round failed. Within a number of days, I was in for a second round, and it would have been a number of days later, I was in for a third round.
So what was why the caution? Because of how toxic it was?
How weak my body was.
Right.
My body hadn't had time to recover from the first round before the second round took effect. And then I was going to have a third round, in a matter of days, and giving the second round my body no time to recover from the second round. So they said to me, if you go for that option, be aware, we think there's a high probability that you'll die on the ward because you won't be able to take it.
Right.
Right. Second option was take a tablet, but that's designed for slow-growing, non-aggressive cancers. And people often get quite sick for a small period of time when they take that tablet. And their advice was, we think you'll take it, experience quite a lot of physical side effects for no gain. Okay? And what's the third option? Go home, spend time with your friends and family. Really? Yep. Okay. How long have I got? 2 to 4 weeks, somewhere in that region.
Hang on. So that you've broken that down as in, well, how long have I got? 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You say that so matter of fact.
Yeah.
Was it that matter of fact? How did that 2 to 4 weeks news get presented to you?
Pretty much like that, with a nicer bedside manner. Again, they're not there to mince their words. And the lady, the consultant that was delivering that news, was very empathic. She was in tears. She had young children herself, so she delivered it with a far nicer bedside manner. But they were her words. I mean, she even wrote a letter to my insurance company saying, Mark's terminal, his prognosis is terminal. It won't be very long. It'll be a short period of time. And that was the letter. That was for life insurance purposes. We've still got the letter at home, but that's what it said. So she was very compassionate, but they were her words. Yeah.
You see, Mark, 2 to 4 weeks is such a unique amount of time. So I think anecdotally we've heard of people who've been told they've got 3 months to live or 6 months to live, but 2 to 4 weeks is so short. Can you even begin to tell me what receiving that news feels like? So not necessarily what you did, but hearing that news.
Well, it's crushing. It's absolutely crushing because that was on the 13th of December. On the 17th of December was Luna's 4th birthday. And then it was obviously Christmas a few days later. And there was such little time to get your head around, those things that were coming up, let alone that news. I mean, it's just devastating. It's crushing. You haven't got long to live. It's Christmas. You can't say goodbye to people because people are starting to travel with to see their families. Some abroad, they're tied up with their in-laws. The kids are off school. There just wasn't any time to do anything, and other than just try and try and have a good time, try and see the positives and everything.
So you had those three options: more chemotherapy, tablet, or go home. What did you choose?
Go home. And I knew there and then in the room that's what I would choose. They told me to go away and think about it, but I'd already made my mind up. And Stina would have supported me whatever I chose. And I kind of figured, if I've only got a few weeks left to live and I'm potentially going to die having a third round of chemotherapy, well, I'd rather go home and spend that time that I've got with my family and my friends rather than take my chances, be in hospital and perhaps die anyway. I'd just go home.
So, Mark, what are the priorities for a man who's got 4 weeks left to live?
Just enjoy time that you have with your friends and family. No, you can't. You can't, because in the centre of your mind, it's not even the back of your mind, it's front and centre, is the fact that you won't be here to see any of this again. You know, you know, I'm friendly with some trustees of a charity, and they delivered some donations to the hospital the day or so after I got discharged. And two of the trustees said to the staff, "Oh, Mark's not got long to live, 2 to 4 weeks, between 2 to 4 weeks." And they said 3 weeks is optimistic. So, you know, when I'm at home, there is no positive outlook per se. You just have to put on a brave face for your kids and just try and have the best time as possible, but every night break down privately in bed with Stina because you don't want to die.
No. But nobody can tell you it's going to be okay?
No, no one can.
So, Stina, you've mentioned quite a lot, was your partner at the time.
Yeah.
But you weren't prepared to leave it like that?
No, we weren't. We'd looked at getting married a few years before, and then COVID struck, and we had to cancel the wedding. And again, because I thought I would beat this, we penciled in to get married at registry office January 2025 and have a party afterwards somewhere a few months later. So we'd started to talk about our wedding in the hospital and what it might look like, and some of the nurses and staff overheard. And then obviously the prognosis came that I was terminal. And a number of conversations transpired, most of which I wasn't really privy to. And Stina had sort of sent paperwork to the hospital because they told her that there is a process for end-of-life patients, that they can marry people in the hospital at a very short period of time's notice. They've got an agreement with the local registrar. I think it's a 4-hour agreement that registrar can come to the hospital and marry you within 4 hours' notice if you're end of life. So I didn't know that conversation had happened, and I certainly didn't know that Stina had sent paperwork in. And we didn't know this was going to happen either, but I turned up on a Friday morning for a blood test in a old, stained, ripped pink T-shirt and some jogging bottoms, and they said, you get married at 4, and this was 10 in the morning. You got a blood test now, and you might need a blood transfusion. Let's see what your blood test comes back with. I didn't need a blood transfusion, but we then went into Canterbury. I just went to M&S and just bought a whole head-to-toe outfit from M&S. I'd lost a lot of weight, so literally everything was new. Stina ran around and got an outfit for herself and for the 3 kids.
This is a wedding with 4 hours notice, right?
This is in the morning, yeah. Stina also had to go to the registry office to sign some paperwork there. When she was walking back to get me from M&S, she walked past the Christmas market. There was a bloke selling rings. Yeah. So she picked up 2 rings from the market. I think the guy selling the rings took pity. Stina told the guy what she was doing, and he gave her one of the rings for free. And she came back with the rings. So we got back to hospital. I was absolutely worn out.
You're smiling at that now, telling the story, but that couldn't have been jolly and fun at the time. Surely.
I think at that moment in time, no, it wasn't fun necessarily, but I'm smiling because, the benefit of hindsight, something dreadful had happened, my terminal prognosis, but out of it came a really funny story, around getting married. So I got back to the hospital, had to have a lay down. Stina raced back to Folkestone, picked up the 3 kids, brought them over. Between us, in the last few hours, we were making phone calls to people to get them to, what are you doing at 4 o'clock this afternoon? It's now like 10 to 1 or 2 o'clock. Nothing. Why? We're getting married in the hospital. Can you make it? well, you know, and I forgot to invite my parents.
What, so you could have as many people there as you
Yeah,
wanted?
I think we got 35 people there. Yeah.
What, on a ward or in a room?
No.
Or?
There's a courtyard within the Braeborn haematology ward, and it was Christmas, so the staff had been round to all the wards, and they'd taken all the Christmas trees out of the wards, and they'd made a Christmas tree lined aisle for Stina to walk down. They'd put bedding at all the windows so no one in the wards could see out. All the staff had brought in fairy lights from home, and they decorated all the windows with fairy lights in front of the bedding. They had got an arbour there that we sat in that was bedsheet lined with fairy lights as well. And yeah, Stina got her wedding dress, and our consultant, I mean, this is unbelievable sort of gesture. Our consultant's wife had said to him, I want Stina to wear my veil. It was a handmade veil. And then not just wear the veil, a little bit later in the day, the consultant said, I spoke to my wife, she wants you to have the veil. So Stina kept the veil, which is just amazing.
Wow.
But, you know, I had to choose. I was stood waiting for Stina at the top of the courtyard, and someone said, "I need to choose a song that Stina walks down the aisle to." And I thought, "Oh my God!"
This is stuff that couples spend 2
ages
years
doing,
preparing.
Yeah. Well, and this is why they spend 2 years preparing, because they said to me, "Choose a song." So I said, "Oh, I'll choose that song, Stina's favourite song. It's called "Wicked Game" by Chris Isaak." And then a bit later, Stina said, "Why'd you choose that song?" I said, "That's your favourite song." She said, "Mark, it's about people splitting up." I said, "Oh, is it?" I never listened to the lyrics.
Oh, well.
But I got the first dance song right, so that's okay. But, you know, halfway through the evening, someone came up to me and said, "Mark, the photographer, who was one of the husbands of one of the nurses, just had a day off, and he came in to do photographs. The photographer wants you up by the cake to take a picture." And I said, "We haven't got a cake." And one of the nurses had been to Waitrose and got a cake and come back, and we cut the cake.
Everybody came together, didn't they?
One of my friends, they sent 6 bottles of champagne, 6 bottles of red, 6 bottles of white, 6 bottles of non-alcoholic champagne. And it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So
you got married?
We got married. Got married in the hospital, 4 hours notice, pulled it off, and it was amazing. And it was emotional, but
obviously
you
you sat on the sofa here now, so we kind of know how this story ended, but we haven't got there yet. And I can imagine everyone is on the edge of their seat, whether they're driving or watching. So is that your wedding anniversary date? Do you keep that as your wedding anniversary date?
Well, yeah, we haven't got there yet, have we?
Well, yeah.
Right? But we had, have we? Have we? 25? No, not yet. Have to do the maths there. No, we had a 1 month wedding anniversary dinner, because at that point I wasn't sure how long I was going to be here for. So I got to 1 month. We had a wedding anniversary, but that will be our wedding anniversary.
But you're keeping the date. So the date that you got married in hospital is forever going to be your wedding anniversary date.
Yes.
So you got married, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And from what you've told us, you know, everybody came together.
Yeah.
But then for the people that you couldn't see at your wedding, you wanted to do something for them as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, because 2 to 4 weeks is not a long period of time, is it? So what do? There were people that I hadn't even told that I was in this situation. I just, there were so many people that I couldn't tell. So on Boxing Day, I decided that I wanted to have some drinks. I rang a mate of mine who's got a pub. He said, "Yeah, you can have them in the pub on the 28th, 2 days later." So I sent a whole load of messages out and phone calls out on the 26th, Boxing Day, when everyone's with their family, obviously. And then 28th came and got about 60, 65 people in a pub in Folkestone. My cousin flew back from Jersey, had 4 or 5 people travel from Wales, some from North Wales, which is a really significant journey. Had people come back from London to Folkestone, had people that were in Folkestone because that's where their families are still from, but ultimately had 60-odd people there. And my friend Jack, who has the pub, he said to me, "Mark, I only thought there was going to be about 15 people here." I said, "Well, so did I."
Yeah.
He said, "I haven't got enough staff." I said, "Well, sorry, mate."
Don't pull any punches, Mark, but what was the purpose of the party?
The purpose of the party was to say goodbye, because there were people there that knew that I was ill, but that I just wanted to see and speak to. But because it's a celebration of life, there were 3 or 4 phone calls I had to make the night before and the morning just to say to these people, "Look, although I'm having a party and it's a celebration of life, it's not because I've beat this. It's to say goodbye." And they were like,
So did everybody who came to your event know that it was a goodbye party?
Yeah. Yeah. And there were a lot of tears from a lot of people. Friends that I'd perhaps fallen out with and hadn't really spoke to properly for 3 or 4 years. And I remember one friend saying, I just thought we'd have more time.
Yeah.
Me too, mate. And we've since become really close again. And another one of my friends just was crying relentlessly. And I'm trying to comfort him, say, mate, it's okay. You'll be all right, mate.
And do you remember much about the event itself? You've just told us about a couple of those conversations and relationships that have flourished again since then. But if you take yourself back now, can you even believe that you were at your own end-of-life party? And that sounds so wrong, doesn't it? An end-of-life party, an end-of-life gathering, celebration, whatever you want to call it. Can you even believe that you were there?
Surreally, no, but in reality, yeah. I mean, that's... Yeah, I was there in mind, body, soul, and it was surreal, very surreal. And hard, very hard, but I was determined to be the last man standing. I didn't drink, I didn't have any alcohol because I wanted to remember it all.
Yeah.
I didn't have any alcohol and I wanted to be the last man there, or last person there.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to leave early and miss anything. Not because I had FOMO and didn't want to miss out on stuff, because I want to say goodbye to everyone and I want to be the last person to leave and just walk out and know that everyone else had gone.
And I've got to ask you this, Mark, and again, forgive me if it's a misplaced question, but I know what my circle of friends would say to me if I had an end-of-life party and then 4, 6 weeks, months later, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Have you had any of those conversations?
Yeah, very much so. First one was with Stina when she said to me a number of months or weeks after I got into remission, I only signed up for 2 weeks, it's quite funny. But, other people, a member of our family, we went out for dinner and he said, it was some other mates, he said, everyone's been really kind to you and people have been so kind. They've been so kind, offered all manner of help and assistance and lovely things that we've done. And he said, you better die soon, Mark, because they're going to be clawing these things back.
They're going on a refund. I'm thinking about the guy who gave the wedding rings as well, as a charitable gesture.
Yeah, I mean, we'll square him away next week or next Christmas.
This is absolutely riveting, to have this conversation with you. I don't like to throw around the word miracle. Yeah. But tell us what happened, because you were told 4 weeks, that's it. Yeah. That didn't happen. Why not?
I don't know why not. All I know is that during January, we were lucky enough as a family to do some really cool things. People had bent over backwards to help us and offer us experiences that our kids could hopefully cherish as memories for a long time. And we got towards the end of January and I'd been sent all manner of information about conspiracy theories. And some guy on a podcast in America said that if you eat, the skin of grapes, it's cured 4 of his mates that have got stage 4 cancer and, you should try it, Mark, and all this sort of stuff. And it was doing my head in. And I said to Stina, I think I want to go back to the hospital. And she said, I've already made an appointment. She'd already made an appointment.
Was this to have another round of chemotherapy?
No, this was to go and just speak to the consultant and say, I'm still here. What the hell is happening? Because I was saying to Stina, what happens now? I've lived longer than 4 weeks.
Well, they must have known you were still here.
No.
They didn't just say goodbye to you, did they?
They did, yeah. Because I made the decision to go home and live out the rest of my days with my family, they wouldn't have chased me.
Wow.
Yeah.
See,
it was incumbent upon us to contact them if we wanted to reverse that thinking.
So you basically discharged yourself, would that, for want of probably a better expression?
Yeah.
Okay, so you wanted to go back?
Yeah, Stina had already made the appointment, unbeknown to me. So we went the next week and they said, literally, wow, we didn't expect to see you. Most people don't come back, but you've put on weight, you feel and you look really good, your bloods are okay, so there's something we can do. It's non-curative, but if it's successful, it might prolong your life by 6 or 9 months. It's an injection-based chemo. Are you up for it? Yeah. Okay, let's go for it. So we went for that. I think the first week of February 25 was when that first started. And then I think I went through till May. And I was doing okay. But by the time I went to London in May, I wasn't in a good place physically.
Yeah, because you got transferred to King's, didn't you?
Yeah.
Why was the transfer?
So we got referred to King's in May on the basis we thought to talk about a tablet that could run alongside this injection-based chemotherapy that, again, if successful, might get you through. This time they said till Christmas, hopefully. He said, I'd like to think it'd get you through till Christmas. So we went there under that premise, really. And when we got there, the consultant said, look, I've read everything, I've seen everything, I've looked at how you've responded to all the chemo you've had and the side effects you had, but more importantly, I've seen you, seen the whites of your eyes, I understand a bit about your mindset and your attitude, your personality and your sort of strength of character, and you're dying, so if it's all right with you, I'm going to take an experimental approach with you, not in terms of the drugs, but the dosages when you combine the drugs. So it was a double sort of chemo approach. I had 2 lots of chemo at one go, and that was experimental, but putting them both together and the dosages around putting them both together.
Does that mean more aggressive?
Far more invasive, far more aggressive, yeah. His words were, it's going to send you to hell and back, physically and mentally, but it might just get to a place where you have a stem cell transplant. And that, that's the first time anyone had said, I'm going to try and take a chance on you. He said, I'm going to try and get you into remission. And so I said, in the way that I do, how the heck, I didn't use that word, but how the heck are you going to do that? And he just said, well, I'm going to bully your body and I'm going to bully your body with chemotherapy, trying to create a pathway to a stem cell transplant.
Was there any hesitation from you whatsoever?
No.
Even knowing how awful that was going to be?
Well, what was the alternative?
Well,
I was dying, and at that point, in my head, I wasn't as bad as Stina tells me I was, but, I was struggling to get up off the sofa. I was really struggling physically and mentally, but definitely physically. And so, no, there's no hesitation. I mean, I did talk about it with Stina, obviously, but no hesitation, I was dying. So what's the alternative? Yeah. Go there. This guy is up for it. He thinks there's a small chance. Let's go for it. What have we got to lose?
Just give me a small insight into how aggressive that was, because for a haematology expert to say this is going to take you to, did you say to hell and back? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, so I was in hospital as an inpatient in King's End for another 4 months, and a proportion of that was in isolation because I was ill or had side effects. I didn't see Luna for a whole month, which I found really hard. Stina wasn't able to come as much as she had done in Canterbury either because of the logistics of where we live and childcare and just travel in general and her job. I had a good network of friends around me that came as and when, but there were definitely periods of time where, 10 days where I didn't see anyone and I was other than a nurse or a doctor. It hit me hard. It hit me hard, really hard physically. I came down with all manner of side effects, some manageable, some really not very nice at all. Yeah. And within that, all manner of investigations to battle those side effects and just sort of progress check how things were going as well. But yeah, it hammered me. It
and
really hammered me.
The result of that hammering?
So the result of that hammering is by the time I went back into King's, my blast cells were about 40% again. There needs to be 5% for a transplant. Yep. I got down to 3%. 3%. So amazing. I'm qualified for a stem cell transplant, but the hospital weren't happy. They said, we want that to be 0, undetectable for your improved chances of long-term survival. And as it happens, that coincided with the fact that they found a donor who they didn't think was suitable. So they said to me, and then when the donor fell away for whatever reason, they said, well, now we've got to find another donor. So now we might as well go again with more of that same chemo in the view to get from 3 to 0. So they went again with that double dropped.
Did you feel like the goalpost had been moved?
Yes, but at the same time, I I wanted to get to zero because I'd come this far now, and if they're saying that 3% will make a big difference to your long-term survival prospects, let's do it.
So
and I'll take the pain.
Yeah.
And that second round was really hard.
Yeah.
And not just the round itself, but the 4 weeks after when your body's recovering, because it was recovering from basically 2 lots of double dropped chemo, tablet in the morning, IV chemo in the morning, and then a tablet in the evening, and it was brutal. It was brutal. But at the end of that second round, the cancerous cells had been obliterated. It was undetectable, 0. So and they found a donor. So I then went into that stem cell transplant process with no cancer in my system.
Right, hang on.
Yeah, I know.
Because, this, as I've said, it's so riveting.
Yeah.
Yes, it was 0. But that news, you were told 12 months before that you'd got 2 to 4 weeks to live.
Yeah.
And now you're being told that your cancer is undetectable. What was receiving that news like for you and those close to you?
Amazing. Really amazing, but the caveat is I still needed a transplant, stem cell transplant, to get into remission. Without the transplant, the cancer would have returned, and I wouldn't have survived. So, while it was incredible, it's caveated by the fact that you can't celebrate too soon because you then got to go through a period of conditioning chemotherapy, which is horrible, and then the transplant itself and the fallout, the impact on you, health-wise, side effect-wise, from the stem cell transplant. So it was incredible to get to a position where you could qualify for a stem cell transplant because I'd never got there before.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, but it's heavily caveated.
And then you just mentioned a minute ago that a match had been found. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're not allowed to know much, but amazingly, Anthony Nolan had found a 28-year-old male in Chile who was a 100% match in each of the areas that they look for. So it's a perfect match for me. And he was still keen to donate, even though he'd been on the register for a little bit of time. So they harvested his stem cells out in Chile. Then they were flown over to London, gone through the process, and then they arrived in my room literally sort of 3 or 4 days after they'd harvested them from him in Chile. And they were put into me.
And for those that are watching or listening to us now, and you describe these cells arrived in your room, what does that actually look like?
So it's just a small bag, a bit like a blood transfusion bag. It's a small bag. It's full of like an orangey coloured liquid, so it doesn't look like blood. And the staff told me that there were 5.2 million stem cells in this bag, and they took about 40 minutes to transfuse into me, and that's it. It's quite uninspiring when it happens.
It sounds like an anticlimax.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you've got like 4 people in the room with you monitoring everything, but it's you just sit there and have this stuff go into you, and that's it. But obviously, the impact it has is huge.
Was there a conversation when somebody said to you, "I think you're going to be okay"?
Yeah, right at the end, when I got released from, I think I had a 28-day bone marrow biopsy that was still undetectable, and after that, I think my timescales are right. I think I got discharged, and until my 100-day bone marrow biopsy, which was on the 15th of December, is very much a sort of wait and see situation. But my bloods were good. Every week I had bloods, and they were good. They were good. And that was all that we could go on. And the fact that they kept being consistently good enabled people and me to get some confidence that everything was going to be, hopefully, working towards a remission. And then we went up to hospital on the 30th of December, and we were told, you're in remission.
And that's the big news, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's mental. It's mental. But again, when that was delivered, Stina and I were sat in the room with this consultant, and I felt like I could cry, but I was determined not to cry because I'd cried so much in the last sort of 15 months before that. So much. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the energy to scream. I didn't. So I just said, "Holy cow!" and then just did a massive sigh. It was like, I didn't know what to. I didn't really know how to react. It was just so surreal because 12 months is a fairly short period of time, and yet the news was just 12 months previous to 13th of December 24, 30th of December 25. The news couldn't have been more different. No. 2 to 4 weeks to live, remission, in a fairly short period of time, really. It's mental.
It is so fascinating listening to your story. I'm really interested, Mark. What matters to you now that didn't before your diagnosis? Or maybe the other way around, what doesn't matter to you now that was everything to you before?
Yeah, I think small things. The mundane things is where the sort of happiness and contentment lives. And, I feel like I'm becoming a different person. I still get things wrong in terms of priorities, but I try now to be more present than I ever was before. That's partly to the fact I'm not working at the moment as well. So that
Do you mean present in the situation or present for your family?
For my family, and also for the moment, just enjoy things a bit more. Life used to fly by before, and I didn't used to take stock of a lot of things necessarily. Even when I was there, I wasn't there, kind of thing. And now, I enjoy being there. As I say, I still get it wrong, but I enjoy it far more, and I look forward to things far more than I used to look forward to them. I'm trying to slow down a bit. I've always been quite a ambitious person that wants to go get and try and achieve, and trying to stop and slow down and be someone different is quite a challenge. Mm-hmm. But I've mitigated that by things like becoming a volunteer for Acute Leukaemia. I want to be involved in helping more than I've ever wanted to help anyone or anything before. Before I was at times quite selfish, quite self-centred, and I want to try and reverse that, really. And I owe Anthony Nolan, the donor, the NHS, other healthcare professionals, all manner of people, friends and family, such a huge debt of thanks that actually I genuinely do want to try and, give back. Along with a friend, set up a little walking, talking, cancer and coffee club that, it's just there as a support resource for people that are going through cancer as an illness or supporting someone. And, things like that. I just want to try and live a different life if I can.
I really wanted to understand that because I see you proudly wearing the leukemia wristbands and becoming part of the CL family. But Mark, coming on our podcast and talking the way that you have, there will be so many people that get to listen to you and your story now, and they'll either be inspired as a patient, they'll take comfort as a family. Right. I think I'm right in saying that you do have the option, or somebody receiving a stem cell transplant has the option to contact their donor. Yeah. Would you, if you do, what on earth do you say to the Chilean young man who has done what he's done?
I mean, what can you say? Thank you, so obvious. Chile is luckily one of the countries that do allow you to make contact after a certain period of time following a stem cell transplant with your donor. So when that time comes, absolutely, I want to try and will reach out to him. What I'll say, I've got no idea, but it will be emotional, and I would like to think that, he will be a part of our lives, and we will be a part of his life, because he has saved my life. Make no mistake about it. Without the donor, I wouldn't have been. I wouldn't be here. So I don't know what I'll say, but I'll find the words.
Mark, I think that's a really fitting ending to this podcast. It's been incredible talking to you, and I am so glad that you are part of the Cure Leukaemia family with us now, and I look forward to doing loads of stuff with you and your family moving forward. For anybody who is watching the podcast, if you'd like to reach out to Mark, you can do so by contacting Cure Leukaemia. Our details are underneath this video. Thank you all so much for watching. What a podcast that was. My name's Adam Joyce. This is Let's Talk Blood Cancer, the Patients Podcast.